Good morning. Good morning. So we are here in Columbus, Ohio. We're about to dial in Vinnie Tracie. I want to start off by saying a couple of things. So first one, in this crazy world of everybody blaming and yelling and screaming and rioting, I wish we all took a moment and just really reflected on some things we could do peacefully and maybe perhaps show each other more support and love. Number one. Talk about support and love. Number two, I appreciate all the birthday wishes and gifts and posts. If I don't respond back in time and thank you, I'm thanking you now. So hopefully that is sufficient enough, at least for today. And number three, we're about to call Vinnie Tracie. Vinnie is an awesome guy, just overall just a good person. He's been in real estate, I think, since 1977. He has done multiple things in the world of real estate and literally became a president of ReMax LLC in 2004. So without further ado, let's dial him in and put him on the phone. So hopefully it works. Every time I do this, I get nervous. So let's just see what happens. We may have to try twice.
Hi, you've reached the voicemail of Vinnie Tracie. At the time, please.
We're going to give him a minute to get ready. We'll try it again. We confirmed this morning, so I'm sure it'll be just fine. So while we're going to do this, we're going to talk about simple things. I'm going to dial him back up in a second, but here is what our topic is today. So maybe teeing this up earlier so that way we can let Vinnie talk a little more. I've spent a lot of time researching and looking at things in the past couple of months about social media and technology. I see a lot of people post things on Facebook and on their LinkedIn and their professional portfolios that they are social media gurus, they're strategy gurus, they're growth gurus. Everybody seems to be reading the same book. They're repeating the same thing over and over and over again. It seems to be that everybody's read some kind of social media books that were out there. I'm not sure what that book is, but everybody says the same thing. There's one part of it that's been missing, and it's been simply focusing on how to execute, the part of execution and actual work. What led me to believe that Vinnie would be an awesome person to interview for this is a prior experience I had with him back in 2002. Vinnie is a huge believer in working hard. And so I called him up, and we had a great conversation, and he's agreed to do this, so we're going to try to dial him again. Again, going back to what he's going to talk about is going to be simply hard work. I'm going to text him as well, see if his phone's turned on.
Good morning, Vadim. How are you?
Hey, Vinnie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, first thing I want to say, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's actually a treat to do this with you on my birthday. It really, truly is.
Hey, you don't ask for much then for your birthday. That's great.
I don't. I'm happy. I'm here at work. I've got this set up in front of me. I'm excited. So you mind if I dive right in?
No, let's go for it.
All right, cool. So I want a couple of questions. Do you mind sharing what you've been doing recently? I know you had a little time off. You've had a lot of thinking you've done. You've done a lot of work. What have you been up to nowadays?
Well, it's one of those things that, when people decide to retire, you have to have something to retire to. And I really didn't. And after about 3 weeks, I was hanging around the house, and my wife, Michelle, who we've been married for 35 years, looked at me, and she finally said, you need to get a job. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, what you don't understand is this house is my office. Just like you had an office to go to for 38 years when you were with ReMax, you need to go find something. So I had a neighbor that approached me that said, hey, Vinnie, I have a new position at our company, owns an oil and gas company. We want to do retail natural gas. And I go, I don't know the first thing about that. He goes, yeah, but the best part is you get to learn something new. So and I said, the only way I'll do this is if I can bring my son Matt along with me. He just got done. He was trying for an NFL career that kind of ended, which I was very happy about. And so he decided to go into business with me, selling natural gas to commercial and industrial end users. So that's what we did, and still doing it right now and having a blast.
That sounds awesome. Sounds right up your alley, too. So I reached out to you last week, and the reason that I did, I'm going to tee this up, and I'll let you share the stories that we've shared. In 2002, I vividly remember, right around the same time, right before my birthday, I was in Denver. And after a late day of whatever we were doing there, we ended up having a drink, and I kept doing what I did really well at the time is I don't know if this is a politically correct word, but I was bitching. And so we were having a drink, and you were listening to me all along, which throughout the years, you've been nothing but a great mentor and a listener. And you said something to me that stuck with me at that point on moving forward. Just put in more work. It was said in a different way, but, work harder. And so now that I'm doing this thing here, I've been reading a lot of books and articles and looking at a lot of people's profiles and posts and looking at what they're putting out there. And a lot of people are gurus. I saw a guy who posted next to his title recently that he was a growth guru, and I didn't know what that means. And so I saw people post things about Facebook and social media and the tools and technology. And we've done some interviews with folks that have talked about the recent gadgets and tools. I have not heard anyone talk about actual work or execution thereof. A lot of people talk about things that are available technology-wise, or how they can tell you how to bring value, whatever value means. Every time we talked, you brought substance. And so that's when I reached out to you and you shared a story that if you could be so kind, if you could share it with everybody else now, that would be awesome.
I'd love to share the story, but I think it precedes that a little bit.
Okay.
Because people have to understand, when we're all little kids, we all have heroes, okay? And the one thing you never want is a hero to let you down. And if you have hero status, you don't get a second chance. And I think we all look back in our lives and we can identify people that we looked up to, who your heroes were. I had three, basically, and the first one was my dad. He was a ghetto kid. His father died when he was 3 months old, and my grandma raised three boys in the ghetto in Hoboken, New Jersey. And what the end result was, my father went to college and then went on to law school and became a federal investigator. So you look at a guy that understands about hard work and determination, that's it. The second one I had was a guy named Dr. Bob Overholt out of Knoxville, Tennessee. He was my college mentor. And he taught me a number of things. And the third one is my wife. And really what they taught me was the importance of hard work, tenacity, never giving up. But I guess more importantly, having your heart in the right place. And I guess what you really mean, or I mean by that, is helping people get what they want. How can I make their lives better? So when you go through your life, those are the kinds of things that have always been paramount to me. And, so when you look at your experience, work ethic is really a combination of drive, determination, taking initiative, being reliable, which I guess is being accountable. And one of the things I'm going to illustrate in the story that I'm going to tell you right now is not taking any shortcuts. So, Vadim, we had this conversation the other day, and you said, okay, tell me a story about work ethic. And I said, okay, that'd be great. As I told you guys, I retired in 2015 from ReMax. And my son and I would go into selling natural gas, and Matt gets a referral, like we do in the real estate business. We get referrals in different ways, and this is pretty unusual because my son went to a prep school in New Hampshire, and coming from Colorado, that's 1,800 miles away, and he did what they call a postgraduate year. So after you graduate high school, he and his twin brother, living in Colorado, to get recruited by big schools, it really didn't happen that much for their respective sports because most of the college recruiters flew over Colorado at 36,000 feet on their way to Texas or California, and it was really hard for them to look out the window and see how good these kids were. So they decided, hey, Dad, we and Mom, we want to go to this prep school. And we said, hey, knock yourself out. I think it would be great. So to continue with the story, my son, both the boys go back for the 125th anniversary of the school. And, you know, to see old friends and the alumni, people that help support them and all that. And while they're there, the admissions director comes up to him and says, to Matt, he says, hey, we have a parent in Colorado with a son in a similar position to what you are. He's looking for a postgraduate year. And, you know, they called us on the phone and that sort of thing. And, you know, what I used to call it in franchise sales, that they really wanted a validation call. So my friend Matt said, hey, I'd be more than happy to wait till I get back to Denver and I'll give them a call. So sure enough, he calls him from the office, and I happen to be sitting next to him. And so he goes through this thing, and he said, you know, my mom and dad said that the worst thing that could happen when we went to this prep school for the PG year is that we could learn how to study. And so that's the worst thing that's ever going to happen. He said, and the reason that happens is because in our dormitory, there is a teacher and their family that live in the dorm with us. And there's a 2-hour study hall every night, and the doors are open, and the teachers come through and want to know if you need help on anything. So you're really forced to study, but to do it the right way. And the other thing he said, which I laughed about, he said, my dad used to call it a safety net year. And he said, you know, it's hard to really screw up there. Because he goes, you look at the positives, and we're meeting brand new people. We're away from home for the first time, but you really don't feel like you're that you're away from home because you don't have a whole heck of a lot of freedom. He said we were on a 1,000-acre campus. There were 450 students, and the nearest town is 5.5 miles away. And he said, so if you really want to put it in today's terms, we were in a minimum security prison. You know. The lady starts laughing. She likes the idea of the safety net year, and she thanks Matt. She said, hey, would you mind if my husband gave you a call? And Matt goes, hey, you know, that'd be awesome. I'd love to talk with him too. And she goes, I really like this. This is great, Matt. Please share that story with him. So sure enough, 5 minutes later, the guy calls up, and, you know, Matt tells him the same story, and, you know, they're talking for, 15 minutes, and finally the dad says, hey, Matt, so what do you do now? And, he told him about his, venture into trying to do the NFL, and then he got into the oil and gas business. He goes, oh, that's interesting, because what we do is we sell natural gas to schools, manufacturing plants, warehouses, and we can do it less expensively than the local utility can. So they get into that conversation and goes, well, my company uses a lot of natural gas. And Matt starts asking the qualifying questions, what's the business, and, tell me how much you use each month, and, all of that sort of thing. Just like we do in real estate, we ask those qualifying questions. So, Matt goes through all that stuff, and Matt finally says to me, he goes, I can get your burns, in other words, how much natural gas you use from the utility itself. I'm going to send you a consent form. Would you sign that and get it back to me? I mean, the guy signs the form, gets it back to Matt within 10 minutes. And Matt then says to him, calls him back up, and he says, well, what I'm going to do is a cost savings analysis. So Matt does the cost savings analysis. It takes him about an hour and a half to do that. And finally, he says, hey, Dad, you won't believe this, but we can save this guy $36,000 a year. So Matt goes, okay, and I see him at his computer, and he's, knocking out things. I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm going to send the cost savings analysis to him electronically. And I go, whoa. No, you're not. I said, what in the world are you doing? He goes, well, it's the easiest thing to do. And I said, oh. And I said, what I want you to do is I want you to get in your car, and I want you to drive up there. He goes, yeah, but it's 50 minutes away. And I said, I don't care if it's 2 hours away. Get your butt in the car and go up there. And he goes, okay, Dad, that isn't the way we do things. And I said, who's we? And I said, that's the way you do things. And finally, I pull out I have always had a bunch of articles in a file. And I just saw this article a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I think it was the 17th of August. And the title of the article from the Harvard Business Review is, "A face-to-face request is 34 times more successful than an email." And he looks at this, he goes, "How do you pull out this crap?" And I said, "Son, read it." And he reads the thing, and he goes, "I'm getting in my car." So he drives up there 15 minutes, meets with the dad and the CFO, and comes back 2.5 hours later with a signed contract. So, you know, he had everything that I wanted him to have except one thing. He had the drive, he had the determination, he had the initiative, but he wanted to take a shortcut. And that shortcut might have torpedoed the sale, because it's so easy for somebody to leave something on their computer and say, "You know something, I'll look at that later." But when somebody goes up there and meets with them face to face, it's a call for action or a call to action. And that is the thing that I wanted him to remember. So that's the story.
Well, when you shared that with me, that's exactly why I called that morning, because I think that's the piece nowadays that's missing with a lot of professionals, not just in real estate, but overall, is the final execution piece where actually physically requires work. And a lot of people get to that point where they're saying, "Hey, I'm getting these leads, but I'm not closing them." Or I'm receiving all this stuff, via internet, but I'm not converting it. Or I talk to recruiters that say, "Yes, I'm talking to agents, but nothing's happening." And it's that final piece of hard work that's missing. So I want to ask you 2 more questions. I know time is valuable. So the first one, if you have to give an advice to a brand new, and our audience is broad. We have real estate agents, we have real estate brokers, we have people that are in mortgage business. But if you had to give an advice to somebody opening up their business, a brand new startup, and the way I view it, real estate agents that even though they work with a company, regardless which brand it is, they're in a business of their own. They're running their own brand. Hopefully that's what they're believing in. Real estate brokers, they open up their own brand, whatever brand they believe in, but they're opening their own business. And the same thing applies to the mortgage folks and, title people and everybody else, sales reps and what have you. If you had to give an advice to a person opening up a new business, one advice that you think would go a long way, what would it be?
Everybody has their darkest days. And I'll reflect back to, when I first started in ReMax in 1977. And, everybody looks at ReMax today and you go, "Gosh, what a successful company." Well, when I joined ReMax, we didn't even have the logo of the balloon yet. And I always remember people saying to me, "Well, what's a ReMax?" And I'd have to explain what it was and what we stood for and all that sort of thing. But that the one thing that took me out of the darkest days was knowing where we could go. And the only way you get to where you want to go is through people. And I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. And I think Zig Ziglar might have said it, or I'd probably say it a little differently than he does. But, if you want to get what you want, you have to give other people what they want. And you have to do that first. You can't go in there expecting things and then people wanting to do things for you. And in the darkest days, I always looked at it and said, if I can make somebody successful, if I can give them what they want. And, if you're a real estate broker, you don't know when you're recruiting somebody what their real hot button is. You don't know that this might be a single mom and she's trying to raise 2 kids. And if I can show them a better way to do it and give them the support that they need, they're always going to come with me if they believe that I truly care about them. You don't know that, we used to talk about, increased income or whatever it might be. And I used to look at people and say, well, what in the world would you do with it if you had an extra $20,000? And you could just see their eyes light up because I didn't know what it was. But I would say, what would you do? And I've had everything from, Well, you want to know something? I drive around in a 15-year-old car. I'd love to get a car that's about 3 years old, but I don't have the money to do that. If I had that money, I could. I've never taken my spouse on a honeymoon, and we've been married now for 9 years. I'd love to take her on her 10th year. I've got 2 children that are in high school, and I have no way to pay for them to go to college. You know, you don't know what that is, and a good way to find out what people's motivation is to ask them that kind of question. And if you can fulfill their dreams and make their dreams come true, that's what makes us successful. So no matter what business we're in, we need to show those people value. And if you're a real estate agent, there are so many reasons why people have to buy or sell a home. And it's so great to find out what that is instead of just taking everybody as vanilla. Treat people as individuals. Treat each and every customer as an individual. And that this is the person that you today are going to make their life better by what you do. That brings you through any dark day that you ever have.
Well, I couldn't say it better. I wanted to thank you. I know time, again, is of an essence, so I appreciate your time this morning. I appreciate you jumping on the phone with us today. This was a treat for me. Honestly, it really was. And I'm sure for another, I don't know how many hundreds of people are going to watch this today. And I really, really wish that we continue our dialogue, and I'm sure we will. And I'm hoping that I'll see you in your future here somewhere nearby Ohio, maybe. Who knows? Or maybe I'll venture off to Colorado. Who knows? We'll figure something out.
Looking forward to seeing you again, too. Thanks so much. And again, have a great birthday.
Thank you so much for your
time everybody took today.
All right. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I don't know what else to say. I couldn't top that if I tried. So at the end of the day, we want to thank you all again for tuning in. Stay tuned on Facebook for an announcement for our next interview, which will be awesome as well. We're going to bring to you live here, hopefully in a week or so, one of the best recruiters that I have passively met over the years. This lady has vision. She has passion. She understands brokerage. She used to be an owner of one of the largest operations in Carolinas, I believe. I have to double check my stats or all the other stuff before I put this out there. But personally, I've enjoyed being trained by her. I've enjoyed listening to her material. I've enjoyed watching her grow her business and now doing consulting work. So I can't wait to announce that. Thank you again for tuning in. Again, one more time, thank you for all the birthday wishes. And number 2, try to keep peace, not war. King Arthur said something really, really cool. Every time the Vikings came and wanted to fight, he would get off the throne with his sword and he would say, I can come off this throne and, do what with this sword? He said, you need to kneel to England, and they all did. Eventually, they all stood up, and he said, now let's go drink. Why make enemies when you can make friends? So make friends, not enemies. Peace out.